To the Unity Zoom public session. We also have many members-only sessions weekly, and we've had 2 or 3 sessions this week already, including our famous cafe that you may have heard us just chatting about. Our cafe is just literally an open session in the morning for anybody to talk about themselves. And we're going to have a cafe for non-members as an open cafe, so people can just see what it's like. And we're going to do that on Sunday. And we're going to do it at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. And the reason it's 11 instead of 10, which is our normal time, is because we're going on to British summertime overnight. So 11 o'clock British summertime on Sunday, we're going to have a public open cafe session. Now, we also provide bags of support on our closed Slack forum, so if you're interested in joining the party, head over to the Unity Property Professionals group on Facebook, and you can find out a little bit more about us and about getting involved into these cafe sessions on a regular basis and all the other support we can provide. So tonight's Unity public session features John Corey. As you can see, he needs little introduction to most. Started working from home 20 years ago. As a direct line report to Steve Jobs, no other. John can talk about many things, and he's fascinating to listen to. But tonight, he's focusing on adapting to self-isolation and home working. So grab a glass of wine, sit back, relax, and I'll hand over to John.
I think in the US, they call it sanctuary at home or something like that, or something about some other phrase. And I like to point out, I think this was on the YPN Simon Zicci session the other night, that you don't want to self-isolate or socially isolate. You actually want to physically isolate, but socially stay connected. So tonight we're trying to stay connected. There's about a dozen people online. We're here to engage. This is highly interactive in the sense that you can ask questions. We'll actually pick one or more of you at certain points to bring you on camera, because this is meant to demonstrate what you can do with some of the Zoom functionality, and therefore we'll include having other people on camera as and when. But the principle that I want to highlight with Zoom is that essentially it has this idea of Zoom meetings. And if you ever worked in the corporate environment, someone calls a meeting, a bunch of people show up for the meeting, that's all fine and good. And there's generally who's chairing the meeting or who called it. Let's get the agenda agreed. So it's a pretty level activity. There may be some hierarchy in the company or more experienced people, but everybody can participate, everybody can engage. And Rupert's been running some coffee meetings, some other things, and these are all under the Zoom meeting format, which means generally you should be on camera. It helps build trust, it helps build awareness. You want to have engagement from being there on camera, and you want to let people see who you are, try not to hide. If we went to a physical meeting, we don't walk in with a bag over our head saying, this is Rupert, but you can't see me. So part of that is Americans, let me see, UCLA, that was it. It wasn't American University, it was UCLA, I believe, did a study long time ago. I think it was in the 70s. 7% of communication comes from the words. 38% is the tone. Notice tone. And then body language is 55%. And we all know this because when you're out and about, if you're in a meeting and someone says, okay, and you can hear the tone, okay, you didn't really mean that, okay, so what's bothering you? Or I asked Rupert, how you doing? And he says, I'm fine. I was like, Rupert, you don't look like you're fine. This doesn't seem to be the way I would normally expect you to be. So what's going on? Oh, nothing. It's like, really? Well, actually, okay. So if 55% of the signal or the message or the truth comes from body language and 38% comes from tone, this idea that you're going to stay in your bedrooms and work with a ghosted image or a still image like this, all of a sudden now there's no body language. You've lost more than half of my signal because I've turned the picture off. Where literally, if I turn it back on, I'm animated, I'm moving around, I can do things. In fact, I can have a bit of fun with you in a few minutes when it comes to moving around. So Zoom is a way for you to stay connected, even though now you can't go out. Or you can go out and do some exercise, but you really can't go out and network and all the rest of it. So let's just think of it as a tool. And it's going to be a temporary tool for your business, and it might become a permanent tool. Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars. Zoom meetings, everybody's more or less equal, everybody participates. Zoom webinars, which is what we're doing tonight, it's a little bit more broadcast. It's a little bit safe by keeping all of the audience off the camera. It also, from a webinar point of view, doesn't tell you how many people are attending. It also, from a webinar point of view, doesn't have a GDPR issue with all your names and photos are now visible to everybody. There is some issues when you use Zoom meetings if everybody hasn't agreed to have their personal information shared. Possibly the host is violating the Information Commissioner's rules for data sharing. Won't go too deep into that. Now, tonight, anytime you have a question, put it in questions. You can ask at any time. Either Rupert will type an answer, Rupert will interrupt, I'll see it and answer it. But that's the point of the Q&A button, is it makes it easy for all your questions to come in. We won't miss any. We know who asked. We know whether we've answered it. We can even say to someone if they have a question, hey, why don't we do that on camera? And then what I would do is I would elevate you to being a panelist. Suddenly you'd be like featured. So it's actually good for your brand to ask questions to get onto the panel. And after the question's over, then you get pushed back to being a normal attendee. So rather than just rattle, I'm gonna ask any questions at this time. Does that make any sense? Rupert will probably generate some questions if you don't.
Yeah, well, makes sense to me.
Okay. Now, you can also run polls. I'm not going to go into polls tonight, but you can have the ability to ask the audience a question where they answer online. Zoom allows people to dial up. It allows people to enter through an app. You can have an app on your phone. You can have an app on your computer. You can have that app on your tablet. Lots of ways to join, but things like polls work only if you come through online. It wouldn't work if you just dialed up on the phone, but you can join from the car or something if you really had to. Let me go off on a little tangent by showing you a piece of functionality. So I want to share, and if people could let me know if they can see that, that'd be nice. Yeah. This is from the Sunday Times last Sunday. It's comparing the 2008 economic crash to the Corona sort of event, whatever you want to call it. And they look at the 2008 crash and recovery, the blue line, and the expectations for how the virus will filter through. And the key with the virus filtering through is it should be sharp, very quick down, and a much deeper down. So it happened really fast and very deep, but it also probably come back relatively quickly. And David Smith featured in his article, and he's an economist. He said, look, people who drive to work and buy fuel and new tires every so often, all the rest of it, when they come back to work, they're not going to drive 2 trips just to catch up. So economically, those economic events have been lost to the economy. Train tickets, commuting on the train, whatever, that's lost to the economy. But otherwise, there's been very little in the short-term impact. And a lot of things will pick up more or less where they left off. Therefore, we'll come back relatively quickly in the matter of weeks and months, 1 year plus, versus the 2008, it took some areas of the country, better part of a decade, to get back to where they were in 2008. We're not here to debate that. What I am here is to show you that you can share a screen. So this is the way that you share a screen. I want you to notice that Rupert and I are on camera and that we can actually still be visible. From building a trust point of view, it's good if someone's sharing slides that you can still see the person speaking. It's not just his voice that you hear out of the speakers, but you can never see them. So let me stop sharing on that one. Now, let's find out, actually, let's do a little bit of a poll. So of the people who are on, how many of you are developers or doing projects where you tend to borrow money, pay no interest, or sorry, make no payments, but you pay interest, and then you sell at the end for a profit? versus how many of you are essentially the people who are buy to let landlords, you put a tenant in, you collect the rent. So just in the Q&A, say whether you're a developer or something close to that, or whether you're actually someone who's more of a buy and hold landlord, okay? And anybody who's in the service accommodation business, the SA business, any form of it, let me know if you're SA. So we have a property manager, lettings and property management. Number of you are developers. We have at least one landlord, some are both. The reason is that what you should do in this period will vary, and therefore how you should use the technology will vary. The technology is very flexible, but I'm gonna now share a slightly different presentation, or sorry, not presentation, but a slide. This is essentially what some will recognize as an internet marketing funnel, and the background V is the funnel. But essentially the point that I want to highlight is under the digital marketeer world of marketing, it's roughly this journey. So you start out with awareness, you move on to engagement. So when someone becomes aware, they might have seen you post something on Facebook. When they start to engage, they're trading messages with you. You want to move people along in the journey. So you want to move them from engage to subscribe. You want them to somehow subscribe, communicate directly, reach out to you. Generally, this is meant they left an email address, maybe they left a mobile number. And then when they've converted, you've actually said, hey, let's have a half-hour call, let's do a webinar, let's do a Zoom meeting, 2 people. And Zoom for 2 people is effectively free. So all of you could sign up if you want, that's fine. If you want to do group events, there's a bit of a time limit unless you have a paid account. But converting is webinars, converting is meetings, converting is having a coffee. It's where people are committing time and some effort to show up and engage with you. All of this is about building trust. The objective is to then excite them by over-delivering, or they walk away thinking, hey, this is really great, we should have another meeting. Or I really enjoyed these coffee meetings Rupert's been running, so I'm going to show up again, that sort of thing. The Ascend is essentially your product ladder. So if you're developers, you might be getting investors to get on board. If you're selling units, or if you're trying to find, as a property manager, new landlords, whatever it is that you offer as your core service. And then you have the people who really like what you do and maybe joint venture promote. So again, this is an example of how you can share information. It's a little bit of a tip, or to get you thinking about how to use technology to do what you would have done in person. You can forget the stuff at the bottom, that's notes for a different presentation. But the point is that there is a process by which you do business in real life. You want to repurpose that process to online. Any questions? How many of you actually use Zoom today, other than this last week? So Richard says no, that's fine, cool. Ian's 4 times, cool. So I've been on it about 3 years, by the way. Actually, I'm gonna do a quick poll. It's a little cumbersome to set it up, but anyway. So Rupert, entertain him for a minute while I learn to type.
Okay, so I can see, I don't know if the others can see this, but Richard's not used it. Ian's used it 4 times. Shane wants to use the bits and bobs, but he uses it on the basic level, I take it. Carol's taken part in a couple of events, and Karen's been using it for about a year. And Rado's, hi Rado, you're in now. He was struggling to get in before. He's used it less than 20 times. So yeah, I think fair enough. I've had a couple of people messaging me today saying they want to come on, and you know, how do you access it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people who've not used it. For me, it's pretty much about 10 days old, and I'm using it all the time. I think it's absolutely fabulous. You still at it, John?
Yeah, I think I've got a poll ready. So we're going to launch poll. If there's typos or whatever, don't worry about it, but I want you to see what a poll is. So I've opened a poll. This is a sample poll. How many need cash? I figured it's a question that most people can engage with somehow. Pick the one that fits the best. Don't worry about picking all the above. So we've had one person vote.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, got it.
Two. So some of you are seeing it now. That's good.
And John, this is the poll, and this is what we're doing at the moment is the Zoom webinar as opposed to the Zoom chat, as you mentioned earlier.
So not Zoom chat, so Zoom meeting versus Zoom webinar. Poll is available in both.
Yeah. So we'll get to grips with doing a few more polls on the Zoom meeting, but the Zoom webinar is an add-on, isn't it, to the Zoom meeting?
Yes. So the presumption is in Zoom that you start with Zoom meetings. You can have a free account, has quite a bit of functionality. What they mostly do is time limit you in the number of people that you can actually engage with at the same time. Then the next tier up is the paid account, and it's actually quite nominal. It's £11 a month or $15 or something around that. And then the next level up, I believe, is Pro, which Ian and I have. And that allows you to have multiple users and a bunch of other things. With any of the plans that are paid plans, you can bolt on webinar. You can bolt it on for a month, or you can choose never to use it. Inside of meetings or inside a webinar, you can do slide presentations, you share screens, you can run polls. There's a lot of overlapping functionality. It really depends on how much you want an intimate audience that knows each other versus it's more of a lecture style where the audience shouldn't see each other. So we've had a few people vote in the poll, which is great. I'm going to now end the poll, and then I believe I'll be given the choice to publish it. So the poll's ending, and then I can share results, or I can relaunch this poll. So I'm going to share results. So now, essentially, everybody should see the poll. I believe that means everybody sees it, including the ones that didn't take part. Those of you that did take part, you get to see how your answer is compared to anyone else.
Good.
Any questions on polls?
Well, I can see already that everybody's got a question they don't want to answer. Who is it that's put that they've got enough cash?
So for the anonymous attendee, I'm not quite sure how you came in, and therefore I don't even know who you are, but essentially you should be able to see Rupert and John as you do. Your chat window should be disabled, that's good. Your Q&A is enabled, which is where you've typed this question. Nothing else. There won't be any other buttons because you're not really driving. You're in the back seat, so to speak, as a webinar attendee. And I've just answered your question, so Rupert will notice that I've answered it. Yeah. Now, actually, who would like to go on camera just to chat about something? Sure, someone will respond.
Jane has said he'll have a go. Oh no, he says he's at Pro. Sorry, Jane.
Well, it doesn't matter what level they have yet.
Okay, Michael.
Happy to join in. Shane did say he's happy to join in. So let me see about elevating Shane to be on camera. Assuming, Shane, that you're fully dressed and that you're actually able to be on camera. First, I'm going to allow you to talk so people see that as an option. So Shane, now you should be able to speak.
I'm just getting dressed.
Cool. Actually, in Europe, supposedly this is, clapping instead of all the noisy bits. We can do this. Now, let me see if I can now escalate this so that the camera wants to be on. I think I can do it from the same place we did it a minute ago. So I'm going to make you a panelist. So I'm promoting you a panelist. So now you should be able to be a panelist. And camera's on. Oh my God, this is how it works. Now that was an example of tone and body language.
Yeah.
So Shane, any
Hello.
technical questions
Technical questions. I missed
about what we're doing, how I do my hair every day, what I'm going to do because I can't get a cut for 16 weeks?
Or perhaps you can share the good news from your cafe, because I was telling people about that a little earlier.
more good news today, Rupert.
Go on.
Go for it.
My valuation came in on the site. We wanted 3.6, but we were thinking they were going to ruin it. They're coming at 3.53.
Oh, wow.
But our current lenders are going, oh, we still don't want to give you any more. Bearing in mind that our current bank loan is 1.7. We're not even 50% loan to value.
Is this a development project, or what is this for a
Yeah,
project?
it's a completed development project.
Okay.
It's 6 houses. We've sold one, completed one. We've got 3 offers in, all pre-exchange. So we're racing to try and exchange them, but we're banking on all 3 of them falling over. So if we get another exchange, we're flying. But at the moment, we thought, well, all we need is to maybe generate another 150, 200,000 pound, just to give us a few options. But with everything that happened in the last week or so,
Yeah. So a lot of development lenders wouldn't want to do that. They would rather just let you extend the term rather than pull out equity.
Yeah.
They don't want to increase their risk. If you're not able to get the unit sold, then lending you more money is not going to help that. It just ruins their position that they're already in. So it's very unlikely you would see cash out in that scenario, but they could be very happy with extending the term or something because they don't want the loan in default and you've had some sales, your LTV is low, that sort of thing. In this particular market, they also can't do much anyways. So they're going to have to be a little bit supportive, but not necessarily tap into more capital.
well, all the funding comes from America, from the firm we're using, and I'm led to believe that things are a bit carnage over there. So we're thinking about maybe going to a more vanilla bank, might pay a slightly higher rate, but they've probably got bigger cash reserves maybe.
So you're essentially trying to replace a construction or bridge lender with another construction or bridge loan.
Yeah.
A lot of times lenders are pretty leery of doing that because like if this went to plan, they shouldn't even be calling us. So by definition, if they called us, there's a problem. Do we want to take on a problem? So just be prepared to have to explain why you're not actually increased risk. You might be less risk.
Yeah.
And you could possibly say it's the damn Americans. We're trying to go local. So.
Yeah, well, I think the current situation they'll be aware of. I think I think there's a lot worse position to be in than the one we're in.
Yeah, well, because of the current situation, a new lender might say, just don't worry about it. 90 days, they can't do anything. So we'll move on to the next applicant.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm gonna finish up this training because this is more about Zoom than it is that, but that's an example of how you can have someone from the audience raise a question. You can bring them in audio only. You can bring them in on camera. There's a lot of chemistry when you bring them on camera versus just a voice.
Yeah.
And it's certainly better than typing things in Q&A, but not everybody's happy to go on camera. Not everybody's had their hair done, got the makeup figured out, got the lighting sorted. So.
Oh, hang on. Let me just lower my lighting down.
Yeah, mine's a little bright on top here, right? And we're gonna see. Okay, turn this one off. Oh, now we got a problem. Turn that back on. Sorry.
No, thank you.
I'm gonna
Good, carry on.
move you back to being an attendee so you don't miss out on anything else.
Okay, thank you.
There he goes. Now, Rupert, you're not doing a housekeeping. You should be dismissing these things that are just comments so that I can see what the top questions are.
Okay, sorry for
Now
that.
I'm gonna do a little razzle dazzle while you catch up on your homework.
Mhm.
One of the things you can do with with Zoom, this is meetings or without meetings. So let me show you, I'm going to show you the naked version. So this is me. I have a green screen, which is really this thing on 2 tripods. It's one of these collapsible ones. I have a slightly better setup in the States. Notice the shadow from the light. Turn that off. We've got a bright light here. If I turn the bright light off, I'm still there. And if I go like this, I'm gone. So Well, I can talk people through green screens if they want, but put something in the Q&A if you want to talk about it. But let me take you on a little whirlwind tour. So if we're going to talk tech, we might as well go out to San Francisco and we'll talk tech where the sun's rising or something like that. And we'll have but if we wanted to do sort of like blue sky, big picture stuff, let's go out of space and talk about what's happening out there. If I wanted to have my branding, I can have my branding, as you can see. So raising funding together, all this stuff, CARE, community apps, all this other things, real estate investing together. Or I could set it up like this and then have a sponsor have their branding here. So you could actually place a sponsor's details, or you could record it this way and then superimpose text later. Now, if we're feeling like we need a little exercise, we're allowed out once a day for exercise. Let's go paddle boarding. This happens to be in Maui. This is Weston Kaanapali, Kaanapali Beach North. I actually own some units here. So a little bit of overview of the development. I have some of the ones facing the water. We could sit around the barbecue, have a little lunch, maybe cook dinner in the evening. Speaking of evening, we do get some good sunsets. So you can sort of take people on a bit of a tour. You could be using your projects. You could be using your backdrops, your branding, your logos. You can do this without a green screen. It works better with a green screen for technical reasons. It has to do with skin tone. Green is the color that's the most different than most people's skin tone, so the software can more dynamically work with it. But let's make this slightly more casual. We're going to do a bit more of the presentation from the barbecue. Questions on green screens, virtual backgrounds, or the Unity background with the clouds and the mountains and the ski bum attitude? Rupert doesn't even react. There he is. Now we're getting a little smile. See, body language, no tone, but we're getting body language.
Yeah, well, I don't have a green screen, but I have a pretty solid white wall behind, and
yes.
So it's good enough.
That's the easy way to do it.
There's a little, you can see as you move in and out, it obviously has to recognize you. And
you watch around the fingers, you'll start to see some noise occasionally.
Yeah.
So you can record to the cloud, you can record to your computer, you can have virtual backgrounds, you can have virtual backgrounds just with like a uniform colored wall. Lighting on the wall helps, and lighting on the person independent of lighting on the wall is generally best. There you go. So you can feature some of your projects when you're talking about your projects. It's not the same as a walkthrough, but it's actually a little bit more emotional and engaging. Ooh, we even have motion now. So this is a live camera or something?
Yeah, it was just in the library from Zoom, actually.
Perfect. So if it's from Zoom, I don't know whether it's a live camera or whether it's on a repeating.
Yeah, it's repeating, yeah.
Okay, got it. I created some of mine. And by the way, I got to show you one of them. One of the things, if you're going to do something like this text is all backwards, the way I see it, so that you can see it forward. I didn't know that the first time I used it. Someone said, well, your background's backwards. I'm like, oh. So on your screen that you see of yourself, everything's reversed, essentially. Well, this is my right hand, and this is my left hand, but like the text ends up being reversed to make that work. So then when it gets broadcast correctly. Any other questions? We can wrap up if there's no questions, or I could tell Steve Jobs stories or other things. What do you want to know?
Yeah, we like the idea of the Steve Jobs stories.
So when I worked for him, he would have been 36 and I was 33. So Richard asked, Richard, would you like to go live? Would you like to be on camera? Are you decent? Okay, let's go find Richard in the list of attendees. So Rupert, maybe you can do this. I'm not sure whether you have the access. So if you look down the list of attendees, can you elevate him to being a panelist? Or can only I do that?
It doesn't appear clicking on him does anything for me.
Yeah, you should have some menus to the right, but I don't think you do because I'm the host. Okay, so I'm going to promote you to a panelist, Richard, and you should be appearing soon. There he is. He's coming in. I'll take you off mute. As a tip, by the way, I set everybody to mute when they join in. Okay, we have an audio problem. This is quite funny. I don't want to embarrass Richard, but I think we're getting a little bit of a feedback problem. Okay, that's not working. So I'm going to put you on mute, Richard, and I think what's happening, just so everybody else doesn't hear it right now. So I think we're getting a feedback loop going, but it's funny, it's not screechy like normally happens.
Yeah.
So let me talk you through the answer. Obviously, when you bring someone in as a panelist, you might have some issues when it comes to the audio quality. So let me discuss, and I'll mark as I'm going to answer it. So the text in the background, what I did is the following, and this may not be the most elegant way. So I go into Keynote or PowerPoint, you create a slide. I actually just screen captured the slide as a PDF. Then because I have a PDF viewer, I flipped it. So that way it's reversed, it's like it's in a mirror. And then in Zoom, when you set up your virtual backgrounds, which I believe you can only do in your pro accounts, you get to upload files to your virtual backgrounds. So you can pick the ones that Zoom gives you, which Rupert showed us one with the waves, or you can actually upload files yourself, like the Unity logo or something else.
John, just to add to that, I mean, the one that you're seeing today, when I make it very big, it doesn't look brilliant. It doesn't look very professional, and it's probably taking up about 20% of my screen at the moment, and it looks pretty sharp behind me right now. And I made that about an hour ago, and I basically took a picture that I'd taken a few years ago when I was skiing with my daughter. I did it in Pages, and I just literally brought in those images, typed in some words, got the font and the color the same, and then I just used Command Shift and 4, and I just screenshotted it.
Yep. So Command Shift and 4 in what operating system?
I'm in Mac. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you can do Command Shift 4, Command Shift 5.
Yeah.
In the Mac operating system. On Windows, you'd have a different process to screen grab. You could possibly grab the whole screen, part of the screen.
So basically, it just produced an image of what was in Pages. So I didn't have to do any saving or changing or exporting or anything like that. And then that was on my desktop. And then, as John said, to the right-hand side of the stop video at the bottom of your thing, there's a little up arrow. And that's what brings you to the virtual backgrounds. And to the top right of the images, there's a little plus. And that
what type of account do you have?
I have Pro.
Okay, so I think this is a feature only Pro accounts have. You can't do virtual backgrounds without a Pro account. Okay. So the entry level is free. The next level that you pay for is still not Pro. It's like single user, but you can do lots of things with it. Pro allows multi-user and some extra functionality like this. Ian was saying earlier that he has a Pro account. I do want to highlight, Richard actually reminded me, we are going to be communicating online. It would be highly advisable to get yourself your ear jacks, you know, your AirPods, whatever you want to call them for your phone or whatever, and plug them into your computer. It cuts down background noise. It also increases the sound quality. If you use the speakers and the microphones out of the computer, you get a bit of room echo. People that like to use a mouse, you might hear a lot of thumping because they keep picking up the mouse and putting it down, particularly next to the computer. You might get feedback loops. It's generally a bad idea. If you want to go super deluxe, well, you can go mid deluxe, which is like the Apple little wireless things, Bluetooth. And you know, the Beats one, the J, whatever one my wife has, it was like, she spent $49 on it. They're great. I have the Bose ones, which are wireless, last 8 hours, the microphone's built in, which also means that as I pivot my head and move around, or if I walk out to the kitchen or walk back, I can stay on the audio and no one actually would notice that I've walked away from the computer. You can hear tonight, Rupert's got a slight echo because of how his microphone's set up versus mine. That's why there's a slight difference. Audio, by the way, in the world of communication, audio is number one. Our brains don't deal with gaps in the audio. Lighting, poor lighting, we can deal with. So if we had this, and we have all this, bad lighting, fine, your brains can deal with it. If you have a slow internet connection and there's some missing frames on the visuals, we can deal with that. But the audio will really drive us nuts. So if you're going to do anything to improve your situation, get out your headphones and start using them, plug them directly in or get Bluetooth, and just practice with it. It's easy. This stuff works really well. And I like Bluetooth because then I can take notes and I'm not hitting the cable and jacking my head around. That was body language there. Yeah, just for
John, just on that, I'm making an assumption that you've got a wired mouse, because I was going to use the AirPods, but of course I've got a Bluetooth wireless mouse, which is, I don't think you can have both using Bluetooth at the same time.
Sure you can.
Okay.
First of all, I don't have a wireless mouse, but yeah, Bluetooth can handle multiple devices.
Okay, that's new.
My iPad and my phone and in fact, the Bose headset will talk to 2 Bluetooth devices, which, by the way, if you're on a live session on Zoom and your phone rings, it'll say, oh, call from so-and-so, which is interrupting now my ability to hear what's going on. So sometimes you don't want too much sophistication.
Okay. Thanks for that. I didn't realize that.
Yep. These are the things you practice and learn. Any other questions rather than drag this on all night?
Well, while we're waiting for any questions, John is...
Actually, I have something to share. Go ahead, Rupert, but I'll dig up this other thing. So go ahead if you had a question, Rupert.
Well, I was saying while we're waiting for any questions to come in, I was just going to let people know that John is on our Slack group, and if you want to chat with him or ask anything of John at any time on Slack, then please do. Perhaps, John, as well, you could let us know a little bit about yourself, about Property Fortress, and about what your other skill sets are, because I know that you can talk about many, many subjects.
Okay, so I am an old person, hair color. I get discounts on the trains. So my first property investment was in 1983. I took a weekend seminar called Nothing Down, Robert Allen seminar. And Sunday it finished, and Monday afternoon I had done a deal of Nothing Down to buy a detached house. And then I went to work. It's just sort of how you do things in Silicon Valley. Didn't realize it was a big deal till later when people said, wow, you went really fast. I was like, well, no, I just thought it made sense. At the same time, I was working in Silicon Valley. I was at Hewlett Packard at the time, started there in 1982. And in 1982, fresh out of university, I actually was paid as part of the day job to be online. So I've been online since 1982. So part of my proficiency with tech and online is I've been doing it longer than many of you have been alive. It's neither here nor there, it's just, it is. As I said, Steve Jobs would be 3 years older than me, about 3.5 years older. He was my direct boss. I wasn't hired to be his employee. I got hired into a particular group, and I took over a project. Then some management left, so suddenly now I had a dotted line, a solid line, and another dotted line working on the project for Next and IBM. This is when Steve was in the wilderness at Next Computer. We used to call it, it was literally called Next until we discovered there was a retailer in Britain called Next. We changed the name to Next Computer. It was only much later when I moved to Britain that I realized there really is a retailer. So I've been sort of a slow burn on the property front in the sense that I'm a buy and hold landlord. I don't like to do terribly fancy transactions. And I've been around long enough and had a lot of fun jobs, investment banks and other things. So I could let the assets tick over. So I'm in a very strong position financially when it comes to equity in the properties. I tended not to take it out. I just let it sort of accumulate. And I bought some in London, probably 2002, 2004, something like that. So got the rise, the crash, the rise, and done just fine. These days, combining my technology, my social media, and my property background, I like to focus on crowdfunding, but almost more as an angel investor. And I want to show you something that ties together what I do with what you're doing. So this happens to be a crowdfunding site, Leo Prop Crowd, they're FCA authorized. There's a bunch of health warnings that your capital's at risk. So you need to read the detail if you ever get on one of these sites to invest. But what I'm talking about that I think is important here is these things called a case study. So you see one right in the middle of the screen. It's for Park Avenue Mews in London. And this was Rod Turner, Piot and Jay Howard. Piot and Jay have a company and they focus on auctions, and they bought this in auction, and Rod became one of their investors, but he's active in the management. So you'd say there was 3 people in the management, and that's important if you care about the FCA. But this is a case study. They're not raising money. They're not trying to do anything with it. By the way, I'm not logged in right now, so therefore this is what the public can see. And this is an FCA authorized site. So they're allowed to share what they've done in the past through a very particular process so that people can get to know them, get to know their projects. So let's see if we can load this. So this is when you click through and you load it. I want to close this question Q&A window in the panelist window. So here's some of the details of the deal. And if you were interested in this, you could register your email address and even suggest for the future for deals that are like this one, I'd be open to put up 5,000. Or I might be open to put in 100. Or I might be open to put in 100,000. But you can register future interest in case they have something in the future. If we scroll down, you get to see a bit about them. This is the Jay and Piot story. There's their names, their photos, and the projects, and sort of the backstory, where it is in Tooting, things like that. So a full case study shared in an FCA authorized way, so they can actually use this case study for promotion. Here are the financials from the project. These have been, I wouldn't say vetted like an audit for an auditor, but they've been through a process, a vetting process, to make sure that there's the information to back this up. We have the team, where you get to feature the team. This is how you sell your team and build your PR value. Now, these two have been investing together, and they've known each other longer, but they've only recently formed a company, probably 6 months ago or something. And then if there was any questions, there's a forum. We can't see the forum because I haven't registered, or I have registered, but I haven't logged in. My point of all this is you go and get one of your case studies up on an FCA authorized site like this, and then you can use Zoom to talk to people about it. And case studies have already happened. They can't invest. So you're not actually asking people for money. It's like a first date. It's get to know me. Here's what I've done. And because you're not asking for money, you can actually start to warm them up for your future. If you have 2 strategies, or if you have 3 strategies, whatever you have, I would say have at least 1 case study per strategy, and then use online networking, online forums to drive traffic to your case studies. Let people register their interest. You're outsourcing the GDPR, you're outsourcing the KYC, know your customer, you're outsourcing the AML, anti-money laundering. All that work is being done by an FCA authorized firm. Your case studies have a slight degree of credibility because it's been through some vetting process. Not that they've proven every single number, but that the information represented here is considered fair. And because it's an FCA authorized process like this, any retail investor across the EU can actually register their interest. So you're not restricted to high net worth, you're not restricted to sophisticated, and you can have multiple investors in the same deal. And this is how you build your investor list. This list, you can actually find out later how many people are on it. If you had 2 strategies and there's 100 people listed for this one and only 10 here, I would go hunt for more deals strategy A, not so much in strategy B. So this is an example of how you can demonstrate what you're doing, how you can build your investor list and use the technology during the quiet time when you're not supposed to be out at networking meetings. Any questions? And by the way, just because you're a member in Unity doesn't mean you can share deals in the Unity Zoom group. All the FCA rules still apply. If there was ever a lawsuit and the judge says, I want to see the data, assume Rupert or the Slack company will supply all the data of everything you posted. So don't assume, there's nothing that's anonymous. There's nothing that's private. If it's digitally, if it exists digitally, it probably could be grabbed somehow. Even in WhatsApp, people can screen grab stuff and share it. So don't assume that, oh, I didn't tell anyone, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You're leaving breadcrumbs.
Mm.
Questions, anyone? Or do we wrap up?
Yeah, that was fascinating. We can't see any questions coming through in the Q&A.
Any last ones from you, Rupert?
Oh, here we go. Richard said he's going to sign up and take a greater look. Shane says it's a great idea to develop credibility on the platform. So
Exactly. Yeah, it goes a long way, and it shows that you care to the investors. And the investors who actually have real money, they know the FCA drill. They know what you should be doing. So when you don't do it, you're basically typecasting yourself as bozo. And you'd rather come across as a professional than a bozo. And I'm more than happy to fill in things for people if they want to ask me questions. I can actually explain what all this means.
Good. Okay.
Shane's got to jump. I should jump too. So anything else?
Good.
Anything from you, Rupert, before we wrap it up?
No, that was fascinating. That was really. I mean, it's great to just listen to you talk, John, because you know you're so used to talking on these platforms. It's just you know, quite nice therapy. You can talk about anything. If you know, we'll just sit there and listen. But
by the way, one last tip I just noticed: you got to look at the camera. So remember where your camera is. Because when I look at myself or I look at Rupert, you can see me doing this.
I was looking at you actually when I was talking to you, and that was so. If I look,
well, you did a good job. You know, it almost looked it, but I noticed I was looking way over here on the side.
I look up there to the camera when I'm talking. So absolutely, you're right there. And the other thing is, when I try and when I try and touch the logo, I'm going to be going off in this direction, and actually I need to use the other hand to do that. So that's a bit
different. Yeah, you gotta. So Shane, the next step, you can get in touch with me for case studies. You can reach out through Slack or Facebook or whatever, and essentially you would register at the site I showed you or some other one, and then it's a matter of filling out the information, getting authorized by the FCA compliance officer. So this is someone at the platform that the FCA is authorized to sign off.
So John, I've got a couple of questions just on the technology here, because I can see in the participants list that Michael, hi Michael, I hope you're okay. Michael Chan is listening in or watching in, but I can see him twice on the participants list. Does that mean he's on his iPad and his iPhone at the same time or something of that nature?
Definitely could mean that, yes.
Same.
Yeah, notice the name is spelled differently, so he's probably on one of both. One thing that you can do, just so people know, if you're struggling with a slow connection and you're trying to run a meeting, you can use separate audio, which is dialed up on your phone network. So you just take out your phone, house line, whatever, dial in and enter the codes that you're asked to enter, and it'll merge the online presence that you have. So the audio will come from the phone, but the visual will come from the camera, and that can actually help if you're having bandwidth problems.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's answered the question. He's come off one now, and he said that he's on the phone and the laptop, so that's what it is there. So yeah, we're good on that. So yeah, all good there. So
enable you, Michael, to do what? Do you want to come on camera or something? Is that what you're offering?
Voice at least. He wants to talk.
He wants to chat. It's always good to have someone who wants to chat. So can you do that at all? Just the audio? I think we proved you can't, but.
I can. Are you asking me if I can bring him in? Or
yeah, okay. So, okay, Michael, you're on audio now.
Hiya, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I mean, the tool's funky, it's really cool. Only problem is I noticed that I can't type in answering your questions on the phone, on the smartphone. So I need the laptop. So it's got functional restrictions on the phone side of things.
Actually, I believe on the phone it might be hidden, but it's there. One of the things for people who are listening, the phone user interface has limited space. So some things are in special windows and you need to practice a little to get your head around it. I know I sometimes can't remember where to go because I use it mostly on the computer. The same with the iPad the iPad and the phone are going to be about the same. So I would assume other tablets are the same. But yeah, it's a good point, Michael, that the user experience is rather different. And if you're doing this with a group as the host, you probably would be better with a computer display. Gives you more space, gives you more a finger touch. If you have a second display, even better, because you can put some windows in the other display and not in the main display. So, cool. Hey, I got to run. So,
okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
John, that was fantastic. Thanks very much, and thanks for giving us your time. And hopefully we can encourage you to come back again and talk on another subject in the future. So just to wrap it up, I'm going to take 30 seconds just to say that we're going to have our next cafe session on Sunday, and it's going to be a public one. So could you all share with friends and people you know that may not be Unity members, and tell them to come along to the cafe on Sunday, because they can really get to experience themselves what we've really appreciated this week. It's new to us all, and we're buzzing about it, to be honest. So, but remember, the clocks are going forward. And so it's going to be 11 a.m. this Sunday. We're going to have a cafe Zoom session. So
yeah, and the US was already ahead. So the last 3 weeks have already been ahead. So when you're doing these online things, I know most people here are going to be with the UK, but you should always be a little bit sensitive to what the time zones are somewhere else. And I generally set it into my calendar so that everybody else sees the time zone in their local time zone. And then you don't have to worry about remembering that.
So thanks again, John. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and it's been great, and it's been a recorded session, so we're going to stick the recording up on the Unity Files Vault, and yeah, looking forward to another one. We'll get something set up for next Thursday, or it may be a different day next week. We have clashed with another event tonight, so we're just going to check that out with other things that are on. But
you could do it during the day. People are at home.
Perhaps we'll do that. Perhaps we'll do that. Well, I tell you what. Now I know how to do a poll, John. We'll poll the cafe. Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.